Hello students, this is Professor Durgesh Singh. Students, in today's class, I'm here to analyze comprehensively the November 20 new course attempt question paper. In fact, you can see the slide I've already prepared. Very comprehensively, we have prepared this particular slide, the entire booklet, the question paper and the analysis of the solution, all the solution, entire solution. Students, we have put across, everything has been put across, the solution is there, it is all ready, and the same thing you can get it primarily the link, in the description box you will find the link where you can download this particular question paper as well as the solution. Now students, first of all, I'm putting this session in English so that I can cater to all my students across the country. Students, first of all, what is the objective of this analysis of the paper? In the last two attempts, students, in the last two attempts, or maybe three attempts or so, there is a lot of the question that has been set across. The way you read the question, they will ultimately decide what would be your answer. The manner in which a students read the question, that will ultimately decide the solution. If they are having a preconceived notion on a particular section or on a particular question, then the chances of an error is very high. Also students, I must tell you and I must admit that there are certain questions, and consistently students, I am telling you, I've seen it in the last 2-3 attempts paper, that there are questions which will require your assumptions, and if you don't give that assumption, then chances are very high that the answer given to the examiner is A and what you are writing is B, considering that this is the ICAI solution may not be the case. So your assumption in those kind of a question becomes very necessary. So all those students who would be appearing in Jan 21 and May 21 attempt, for all of them it is an eye opener as to the way you will refer. I don't know about the other subject, but at least I can tell you about the direct tax, my paper. I've seen it now students, it is proved it that these questions that they are drafting requires assumptions. As we proceed in our discussion, I will prove it where exactly, if you see how the things changed, you may have, and I'm telling you, 90% of the students would have given the answer like this, but actually the ICAI, I can bet on this ICAI solution would be something else. Which are those questions? We'll see on that particular thing, and on that basis, this would be a very important learning objective for all those students appearing in Jan 21, May 21, November 21 attempt, and even thereafter. Obviously, for May 21 attempt, maybe the assessment here being different, something here and there will change. But Jan 21 attempt, this particular paper should be a good education guide for all of you. Must go through this one. For old course students also, this analysis would be required. Old course students, one more point. I have also done the paper analysis of the old course. That paper analysis of the old course students, you can find it in the Unacademy learning app. There students, you will find this paper analysis. So for the old course, new course, I am deliberately putting it in the YouTube because students have told me about the fact that they found this new course paper a bit tricky. Second, it was lengthy. These were the two things. So let us analyze this particular paper. Now students, just I should make an outright remark. I was so glad to see certain questions. We have always put a major thrust in our classroom when as to discuss. All the students will appreciate this particular part, specifically this case law Eli Lilly. You remember we used to make that case studies and all on Eli Lilly. This has been redeemed. For attempts for all my batches, I used to do this particular case law about that foreign company employee in deportation in India, Indian client used to making the payment. So that is one. Secondly, I was so pleased, students, to find out a transfer pricing question, students. 6 marks, practical question. Students, for the first time, this question, it is only there in our booklet because I know, because I have prepared this question. And this was a case of two comparables. I have prepared this question in 2018, students. Duplex INC dot in all my regular book and the capsule booklet. This particular question was always there. Duplex INC dot. Two comparables I have made it, and based on the two comparables you will get 2 ALP, and you have to, it is not comparables has been given, and then you have to, through cup method, if you remember in our question, through cup method you have to adjust the uncommon factor. So do the comparable adjustment and thereafter arrive at 2 ALP, and then from 2 ALP arrive at what? The average. That is what we had a question on that, which I have drafted in my particular booklet from 2018 or 17 or so. I don't now remember it is consistently with the hallmark of the same set of question they have asked. Rest of it, students, which are being there are something which is like from amendments and all which are being there. So I will discuss with all of you quickly, but notably a quick takeaway of these two questions, because I was so pleased. And this one 44C, there was also this particular question on 44C for 6 marks. All these were something that we used to always analyze in depth wherever we used to have our sessions. Nevertheless, let's try to proceed on our discussion, students. So I have given in my first page, students, the index. This index will cover comprehensively what? Your entire every question. I have given a brief remark what exactly they have targeted in this every question, along with the marks that it has carried. Obviously, I am not giving the MCQ part of it. I have not privy to the MCQ what has been asked. Let's start. Question number 1, students. See, one thing is there. Every students would have ended up attempting question number 1. Students, again I am repeating it and I am telling you again, all the students appearing in Jan 21, November 21, students, please try to write your remarks, explanation relating to a particular adjustment immediately below that particular adjustment itself in the bracket. You should always first sentence section, second sentence conclusion, and in that first sentence whenever you write the section, please make it very clear, in a very clear terms, refer that section what it says and the critical word based on which the adjustment is given, whatever adjustment that you have given, add or less, that critical word if possible to underline the same. Let's start, students. MP Limited is engaged in the manufacture of textiles since 1st of May 2010. So always I have told you that whenever a manufacturer comes, always have a habit of underlining the same. Its statement of profit and loss account for the financial year ended 31st March 2020 shows a profit of 560 lakhs after the debit and credit of the following. Always remember this. We used to always practice right from our initial class, after the debit and credit of the following. Let's see. First of all, it is a manufacturer, so always be very careful. And manufacturing since what? 1st May 2010. Students, I have told you in examination, always first line once you have read it, then immediately, this question number 1, only the total income question, immediately read what is the last line. Compute the total business income of the company for AY 2021, giving a brief explanation to each item of addition or deletions. Ignore MAT provisions and the provision of 115BAA. Otherwise, this could have required a serious consideration of the MAT and 115BAA, but not required on this particular case because they have clearly said not to be considered. Fine. Depreciation charged on the basis of useful life of the asset as per the Companies Act, we all know, add back and then less depreciation under the income tax law. Industrial power tariff concession of rupees 5.40 lakhs received from Madhya Pradesh government was credited to the statement of the profit and loss account. Students, outrightly, although I have given a very simple explanation, but I should also tell to many of you who are already educated in terms of ICDS number 7, subsidy, as we all know, other than the subsidy on the depreciable asset, that first of all it is defined as an income. Having defined that as an income, it is charged as an income, isn't it? So if it is charged as an income, and students, the very fact that it is already received, do you know the recognition, the way the subsidy is recognized? Subsidies of the government grants are recognized. How they are recognized? So the recognition, if there is a reasonable assurance that the condition that the condition will be met and the grant will be received, then you should be recognizing that subsidy. That is the basic test of recognizing the subsidy income. However, they clearly say that the recognition shall not be postponed. Students, ICDS 7 says what? The recognition shall not be postponed beyond the year of its receipt. Beyond the year of its receipt. So, assuming that if I go with ICDS 7, the fact that it has been received, accordingly the recognition needs to be done in this particular previous year itself. And the fact that it is credited to the profit and loss account, no further adjustments are required. So, that way I can quote ICDS 7 and get away with it, or else the normal section 2 clause 24 definition of income, recognizing this subsidy as an income, can also be put forth. So, it is up to you what is the answer that you give in this particular context. Point number C. Contribution of rupees 2.5 lakhs to a scientific laboratory functioning at a national level with a specific direction for use of the amount for scientific research program approved by the prescribed authority. So, in that case, friends, you have done the contribution. So, accordingly, the deduction would be how much? Perfect. But be careful, for only up till Jan 21, it is 150%. May 21, November 21, students, you all now know the deduction is curtailed to 100%. May 21, November 21, but for Jan 21, it will still be 150. Profit of rupees 8 lakhs on the sale of plot of land to AVM Limited, a domestic company. Students, plot of land, capital asset. So, therefore, we all know that first we will remove this particular profit, because this is chargeable under which head? Under the head capital gains. So, therefore, this is a case of a classification. So, we always know that this used to be our first adjustment. Do you remember that, students? This used to always be our first adjustment. Classification used to always be our first adjustment. Then we used to remove this, and then we used to say that it will be chargeable under the head capital gains. At the same time, I must make a remark. Students, under the head capital gains, there is section 47, as per which what it says: any transfer of a capital asset by a company to its wholly owned subsidiary or vice versa. Any transfer of a capital asset by a company to its wholly owned subsidiary or vice versa is not considered as a taxable transfer, provided the transferee is an Indian company. Provided what? Provided, students, the transferee is an Indian company. So, on that note, we will say that this particular case is 47. So, when you go to capital gains head, there you will not say this to be a taxable transfer. There you will not say this to be a taxable transfer. Keep that point in mind. Coming to point number E, payment of rupees 3.5 lakhs towards transportation of various materials procured by one of its unit. So, it is towards transportation, students, to Mrs. Bansal Transport, a partnership firm without TDS. The firm opts for presumptive taxation. That is a transportation firm under 44AE, and has what? And has furnished a declaration to this effect. It also furnished its PAN. Remember this is an adjustment. No TDS is required to be deducted if you don't own more than 10 trucks. So, the fact that you are in 44A, you don't own the PAN. You don't own what? More than 10 trucks at any point of time during the previous year, and at the same time you have given the PAN. Accordingly, even if I haven't deducted the TDS, will there be any disallowance under section 40AIA? And the answer is no. So, nothing will happen in this case. Bonus paid to staff includes an amount of rupees 1.5 lakhs which was provided for in the books on 31st March 2019 but has been paid in August 2019. August 2019, students, that is in the current year. Last year provision paid in August 2019. Now, you tell me, students, in this context, this bonus paid to the staff, in this context, students, you just tell me one particular thing. In this case, if you can just, students, read this particular point thing once again and just tell me the impact of this particular adjustment, all of you. Say students, what is your take on this one? So if you see very carefully, first of all, this kind of an adjustment, in fact, this is also the same adjustment in the old course as well. Same adjustment. In fact, there are 3-4 adjustment students which is common for both old as well as new course students. This is one among them. So what happens over here is that easily students can go wrong and they say it will be allowed as deduction. But be careful that this adjustment is an adjustment for silly mistakes. Last year entry debited in the current year. You tell me, did he made the payment within the due date of the last year itself? Did he made the payment within the due date of the last year itself? And the answer is yes. The very fact then he has made the payment within the due date of the last year itself. Therefore what we will say, it will be allowed as deduction in the last year itself. And the fact that it is allowed as deduction in the last year, accordingly, the current year debit is incorrect and hence has to be added back. So that add back is required, students, in the case of point number F. Now coming to point number G. Interest of rupees 15 lakhs paid on loan taken specifically for purchase of plant and machinery. Out of this, rupees 5 lakhs is for up to the period till such machinery was commissioned. What does it imply? You have debited entire 15 lakhs, but as we all know, as per explanation number 8 to section 43(1) or proviso to section 36(1)(3) or even as per the ICDS 9 on borrowing cost, what it says? It says that the interest expenditure or the borrowing cost up to the date the asset is put to use has to be capitalized. So this needs to be capitalized. 5 lakhs has to be capitalized, so therefore 5 lakhs has to be added back. Not only that, students, the fact that it is to be capitalized, to that extent the depreciation amount also will increase. The depreciation amount will also increase. Also, knowing the fact that it is a manufacturing company, it will have two claims of depreciation. One, normal depreciation at the rate of 15% on this rupees 5 lakhs and the additional depreciation of 20% on that rupees 5 lakhs. So that is the two for reduction. So one is the add back 5 lakhs and then the reduction of depreciation and additional depreciation proportionate on this rupees 5 lakhs, which is capitalized to the actual cost. After this, students, the next particular point, if you see over here, a debtor who owed the company an amount of rupees 20 lakhs was declared insolvent and hence was written off by debiting the statement of profit and loss account. Write off is the criteria for what? For the deduction under section 36(1)(7). It is not that the person to claim the deduction of bad debts, it is not that to claim the deduction of bad debts the debtor has to be declared as insolvent. This is not a condition precedent. So therefore in this case, students, therefore in this particular case we shall say what? That this particular debtors will be, this particular debtor, students, in this particular context will be allowed. The bad debt deduction will be allowed in this context. Point number I, rupees 5 lakhs being the additional compensation received from the state government pursuant to an interim order of court in respect of land acquired by the state government in the previous year 14-15. So students, over here if you see very carefully, this is also a case of the capital gains. Do you all agree to that? This is also the case of a capital gain. So accordingly, students, this also will go under the head capital gains. This will also go under the head capital gains. So therefore, you will have to again do the classification to say that this is a matter to be considered. Considered what? Considered under the head capital gains. But be careful, students, because it is arising from an interim order. This is not through a final order. Accordingly, this compensation, at least till the time the final order comes, this will not be taxable at this previous year. So the chargeability of the additional compensation will arise in which previous year? The previous year in which the final order is passed. So interim order, it will not be the case, at least in this year. So first of all, you will do the classification, you will remove it from this net profit, and then under the head capital gains, you will say it is not taxable, at least in the previous year 1920. Now, in order to expand its overseas business, the company planned online advertisement. Do you know online advertisement? Perfect, friends. Equalization levy. Online advertisement campaign for which it engaged Fastex Inc., a London-based company, not having any PE, because that is the criteria. The service provider, being a non-resident, should not have a PE in India, and the service receiver, in one of the service receiver, happens to be the Indian company or the resident. Not having any PE in India, and paid rupees 5 lakhs for services availed, no tax or TDS. Which tax they are talking about it? Equalization levy. So students, accordingly the disallowance will happen, isn't it, for 40 AIB? So that disallowances will happen. Rupees 2 lakhs paid to the consultant for expert opinion on a new business setup. New business, students. This expenditure you will get deduction only from the new business. Now, in this context, this expenditure from this manufacturing business cannot be allowed, and hence will have to be added back. Normal depreciation computed as per income tax rules on the book asset is how much, students? 71 lakhs. Debenture of face value of rupees 1500 lakhs having 5 years tenure were issued at a discount of 3% and were subscribed in full. Students, 3% discount. What is the treatment? Pro rata basis. The spread will be on a pro rata basis, students. The spread will be on a pro rata basis, and that exactly what the situation shall be in this regard. Now students, one point which I'll just tell you before we can proceed further. All the one who would be appearing for Jan 21 attempt, I am having my Brahmastra batch, a capsule batch, you can say. It is a capsule batch, students, which we are having, which I am doing it for free. It's a very highly focused Jan 21 75 hours batch. In fact, I am just right now would be starting on 17 December with international taxation topic, and I'm telling you students, the response is amazing. Students are understanding the huge value that they are getting it, and why it is so focused, because this is based on all the analysis of November 20 old and new attempt, and therefore do count on this particular batch for the impactful final last revision for your Jan 21 attempt. In fact, this timetable is also released. There is a set of timetable up till 5th of January, for which the batch is going to be running through. So that timetable is also out. So you should take the benefit without fail, students, and see through. This paper is flying colors. One more particular point I should tell you: those students who are appearing for May 21, November 21, or your friends who will be appearing for May 21, November 21, students, my live batch at Unacademy is going to start on 18th of December. So that is 18 December. For 180 hours, students, I'm planning to do this particular batch. So it's like a 3-month subscription if your friends takes. So not only my subject, along with me, there are other faculties whose paper also for IDTA, SCMP, they can also access those particular subject. So you will have a very impactful study at a very economical price. Do take the benefit of the same as well. So even that is one advantage that you should always take in for. 18th I'm starting. My live batch timing is at morning 9:15 to 11:15 a.m. That is my morning batch timing, 9:15 a.m. to 11:15 a.m. And but if students want to take up offline also, they can do it. Although I recommend that if you are doing May 21 and you don't have this office pressure, do see that lecture in the live session. But if you want to take across in the offline mode, you can just go ahead with whatever suits you. That is the flexibility. You can view n number of time. There is no limitation on the views as well. Okay, and also students, whenever you are enrolling for this course, do put the code CADS. I've already have given here CADS, so that there is a discount that you get it primarily by putting the code. So let's continue, students, here. So this debenture discount, students, we all know there is a Madras Industrial Investment Corporation judgment of the Supreme Court. We all know that even though without that case law, you should know that pro rata basis you can get the deduction of this discount. Pro rata basis you can get the deduction of this discount, and that exactly what this point number 2 is all about. Thereafter, students, point number 3. The company received a bill of rupees 3 lakhs on 31st March 2020 from a supplier of cotton. So they have received a bill on 31st March 2020 from a supplier. Okay, supply is already made in March 20. The bill was omitted to be recorded in the books in March 20. Omitted, students. So purchase does not reflect this particular 3 lakhs. The payment against the bill was made in April and necessary entry was made in the books then. The same has been considered in the closing inventory. So although it is appearing in the closing inventory, but it is not there in the purchase. We all know, students, if you remember, I used to always say in 28.1, the chargeability is on profit and gains. The chargeability is on profit and gains. Remember, all my students, you should remember this, the profit and gains for the previous year. This is actually they are talking about previous year. The charge is on the previous year. So the current year expenditure loss should be deducted or allowed as deduction from the current year revenues. And therefore, an omission to such effect will not be correct, will not give rise to the correct profit and gains chargeable for the previous year. Remember that concept? Yes, exactly this. Nobody would have understood. Now this is the on the previous. Everyone would have added back, but reasoning part, students, is a game. Although I must say my reasoning is a simple reasoning, students. I've kept it a standardized reasoning. But all those my students who are listening to so as to universally serve this particular lecture, but all my students, you would appreciate the kind of nuances that we have picked up on the concept of the previous year in our initial lecture itself. So point number 4, students, the company has purchased 1000 bales of cotton at 5000 per bale from NP LLP, a firm in which majority of the directors are partner. The normal selling price in the market. So I have purchased at 5000, whereas the purchase should have happened at 4600. So therefore 48 to effect excess of the expenditure should be disallowed, and that exactly is the point. So students, first, once you are done with the classification, there are 2 adjustment on classification. That is to say, you hit other heads and then thereafter you will do it. In fact, this is a beautiful question. Our students should have enjoyed this doing it. Students, although I have, if you see the presentation of my answer, I have done all add together and all less together. I can do it because I have got all the time in the world. You didn't have the time in 3 hours, isn't it? So for all of you, one thing at least should be common. Classification, students, don't goof up. This at least please maintain this consistency of the classification from the profit. First, what gets eliminated or adjusted is the classification entry items which falls under the other head. Once that has been done, what I will say to you, you don't do all the 8 together and all the less later on. Don't do that, because this will in fact will be costly for all of you. I will say that as the adjustments are coming, you can just keep on add less, but please do a proper reasoning. A proper reasoning is required, and that is what is expected from all of you. One more point, students, I should tell you, in your answer, students, my humble request to all of you would be, leave one line after all the adjustment, one line after each adjustment, so that your answer looks very neat and tidy. That is the reason why my request that you should always keep this particular perspective in mind. So this is it, students. Solution is there in front of you. Please come to this particular charitable trust. Now, all the Jan 21 and May 21 students, my request to all of you would also be to go to the old course paper as well, for which my solution PDF is already out. So that is already there. Please go through that particular old course question paper on charitable trust. This time they haven't asked anything on exit tax. So chances are also equally very high that exit tax may come in Jan 21 or May 21 attempt. Be careful, students. Okay, both in old and new, November 20, nothing of exit tax has come. But what has happened in this question number 2 is, I can tell you one thing. There is always one doubt in the mind of the students, is this, that, sir, that 15% ad hoc exemption that we should we take on the gross receipt or should we take on the income? This is always have been the bone of contention. Even ICI solution has remained inconsistent on that point. ICI solution also has remained inconsistent on that particular point. Some of the attempts as recent as I think November, May 19, if I'm not mistaken, they have gone with 15% on gross receipt. Prior to that, 15% of the income. So this always happened to be a great element of confusion in the mind of the students. What should be done in this question? Let's have a look. Asma Rani Public Charitable Trust runs a hospital cum rehabilitation center to treat the patient from leprosy. The trust is registered under section 12AA and following the cash system of accounting. It furnishes the following information. Gross receipt from hospital is 560 lakhs. Gross receipt from rehabilitation center. Both the cases, students, you are given the gross receipts. Both the cases, students, you have been given the gross receipt. Fee is not realized from patient at 31st of March 2020 is how much? 36 lakhs. So not realized, so accordingly it will go to this deemed application. Remember the deemed application of section 11? Administrative expenses paid for hospital students 335 lakhs. Admin expenditure. And point number 5 is what? Admin expenses paid for rehabilitation center 138 lakhs. Fine. These are the two things. Now, what students generally would have done, and rightly so, they would have reduced this admin expenditure from the respective gross receipt, and by that you would have arrived at the income from the property held under the trust, and on that income later on you would have given that 15% ad hoc exemption. That would have been the general treatment that the students would have given. But is it that to be done so far as this question is concerned? Let's have a look. Point number 6. Acquired a building for rupees 150 lakhs on 1st of May 2019 for expansion of rehab center. Cost of land, students, included therein is 85 lakhs. So this would be considered as what? As an eligible application. Do you all agree to this? Yes. So this would be an eligible application. Now, stamp duty value of the land and building on the date of registration. This information, why they have given this information, by the way? Stamp duty value. This is just to test you whether you will write the applicability of 56.210, applicability or non-applicability. Applicability or non-applicability of 56.210. Students, check out 56.210, and there are certain exceptions where the provision of 56.210 is not applicable in the hands of the recipient. Now, one of the exception happens to be in the case where these transaction is entered by a public charitable trust eligible for the exemption under 1023C or 12AA, registered under 12AA. So in that regard, students, here the difference will not be charged under section 56.210. This reference needs to be made. If you don't make this reference, your marks will get deducted. For sure. Even though the answer would be full right. Doesn't matter. Your marks will get deducted. This is why they have given this particular sentence. Point number 7. Grant received from the state government. Even this would be considered while determining the income of the charitable trust. Please read point number 8 very carefully. Please read point number 8 very carefully. All of you. So, what they are saying? On this, administrative expense includes the payment of rupees 12 lakhs to resident doctors and contractor, on which TDS is required to be deducted under 192 and 194C, but such TDS has not been deducted. Students, now you tell me, as far as this point number 8 is concerned, so far as this particular point number 8 is concerned, you need to tell me one thing. Whether this will be considered as what? As a deemed application. Remember this particular part? This particular amendment was, I think it was Finance Act 2019, if I'm not mistaken. 18 or 19, 19 I'm mostly. No, sorry, 18. 18 mostly, students. As far as FA 18 is concerned, the provision of 40A2, 40A3 and 40AIA will apply for the purpose of not allowing this as a case of an eligible application. This will not be considered as an eligible application. So students, by virtue of this particular adjustment, you are supposed to treat the expenditure as the case for application. The expenditure as a case for the application. So this will not be considered as an eligible application. So while what happens is that after 15% ad hoc exemption, then comes the exemption on account of application. So 30% will not be considered to be an eligible application. What does it imply? So it implies that this admin expenditure will not be reduced from this. But it will be considered as what? As an eligible application. So it will come in the statement, it will come after 15% ad hoc exemption. Now that 15% will now be applied on the gross receipt. It will now be applied on the gross receipt. So what has changed? If this information would not have been there, then I would have reduced this admin expenditure from above. And I would have said that on the net income 15%. But the fact that point number 8 is given herein, this point number 8 signify this is the amendment which is on the deemed application, whether it will be considered as a part of the application towards a charitable trust if there is a default on the payment under 48.2, 48.3 or 40AIA, then to that extent of 30% or whatever be the disallowances which otherwise is applicable for these sections, it will not be considered as a deemed application. So the intention of the examiner is to make you take this where below 15% ad hoc exemption. That is how you need to read the question. This is the manner in which you need to read the question, students. And that exactly is the game. So the art is about how you read this kind of questions that will ultimately decide how much you are going to put across. But many students will say, sir, but we have done this. Fine. No issues on that. I have in fact given, if you see my notes, students, my point is that you have to write notes on that. These are all the matters relating to note, because you know that there is an alternate treatment. So in the main solution, I have gone with the gross receipt, going with this particular item of 30%. This TD has not been deducted. Then what I did, I took 15% on gross receipt, and this expenditure to the extent of 30%, I have not considered this to be an eligible application. So only the net I have considered this to be an eligible application. So my change in the solution was based on how they have put forth this particular adjustment. Now if you see note number 1 very carefully, what they are saying, 15% ad hoc exemption in the solution is taken on the basis of interpretation of Supreme Court in CIT versus Program for Community Organization. All of you are aware of this particular case law, where their lordship held that 15% of gross receipt would be eligible for accumulation under section 11(1)(a). 15% what? Of the gross receipt. So ad hoc exemption on 15% of the gross receipt. However, alternatively, this is what many would have done it, isn't it, as their main solution. Alternatively, the ad hoc exemption can also be given on income derived from the property held under the trust, in which case the administrative expenses shall be reduced. In computing the income, the administrative would be reduced subject to disallowance of 40IA. 30% will not be reduced to determine the income. This is how you are supposed to put forth. So I have told you, students, it's so important. Knowing that there is an alternate solution, you need to write the note, or else you will not survive. Marks will get deducted. Rest of it, students, are fine. Like Only this was the point which was bone of contention. Rest of it is a very simple thing. Like voluntary contribution, including the corpus donation for rupees 10 lakhs, is rupees 20 lakhs. These contributions are included in the gross receipt. So corpus donation, what I have received as a corpus donation, will not form part of my income. Amount donated to so I am donating to Jan Kalyan Trust, registered under 12AA, running similar hospital in Bihar. It includes corpus donation. Now students, you tell me, if I am giving a corpus donation, whether it will be considered as an eligible application, and the answer is no. So out of 11 lakhs, 5 lakhs will not be considered as an eligible application, only 6 lakhs will be considered as an eligible application. Repayment of loan taken earlier for construction of rehab center, will this be considered to be an eligible application? And the answer is yes. Point number 13, the trust set apart rupees 25 lakhs for acquiring another table and equipment for OT, but the amount was spent in 2020. So it doesn't matter. Actual spent is not that critical if the amount has been set apart. Even that we know, accumulation and all these things, we are all aware of that. And he has already filled up the form number 10, and that money so set apart has to be deposited in the mode specified under section 11 subsection 5, which is also given in this question. So absolutely fine, students. There is no such reason why we should be overcritical about this particular thing. Everything is fine. So just students quickly, okay, by the way, what is the question? Compute total income and the income tax liability. Students, we have missed here anonymous donation. There is an anonymous donation, students, of 8 lakhs. Anonymous donation of 8 lakhs. You should know that anonymous donation of 8 lakhs, portion of the anonymous donation is included as the normal income. How much portion of the anonymous donation, students, is included as the normal income? 5% of the total donation will be compared with the rupees 1 lakh. Higher of the two will be considered as the normal income, and that will be reduced from the total anonymous donation, which is 8 lakhs, and the net after reduction, the net will be taken out, because you will not give the 15% ad hoc exemption. So you will take out, and then on that you will apply a flat tax of 30% on that net, and that exactly how you're supposed to do it. So you can just see, students, here gross receipt 540, voluntary contribution other than corpus. From rehabilitation also, students, we are taking the gross receipts. Fee not realized from the patient. Now here this fee, I'm talking about this fee. So this is a game, this we have not discussed. So students, cash system of accounting, so if not realized, forget it. In that case, it will not form part of the current year income. This will not form part of the current year income. Now if you see the next one, students, point number 6, anonymous donation of rupees 8 lakhs received. Now I told you already, 5% of the total donation, okay, which is 28 lakhs or rupees 1 lakh, whichever is higher, that one would be considered as the normal income. So 5% of 28 lakhs is 1.4 lakhs. This is normal income, and that net amount, which is 8 minus 1.4, this will be taken out. Means it will be considered in the tax liability at 30%. Government grants also would be considered as an income. I've already have told you, this is also part of your normal income, and then you take the total here, and on that total 15%. Now see here, note number 1, I've given that note number 1. I've also given note number 1 for these two. Why? Because these point number 8 and 9 is in relation to that administrative expenditure. So in that context, what we have said, that this administrative expenditure has been reduced after that 15% ad hoc exemption as an eligible application for charitable purpose. But again, I am repeating, students, if this 40AIA adjustment would not have been given over here, we would not have even looked into it. Students, looked into it. Did you all got this one? And that exactly how you would have gone through it. Point number 10, meaning when I say we would not have looked into it, means we would have reduced it from in determining the income derived from the property. Instead of putting 15% on gross receipt, we would have reduced that admin expenditure from the gross receipt. Point number 10. Acquired a building for expansion of rehab center. So that is eligible application, and the difference between the stamp duty value, will that be considered for 56,210? And the answer is no. Amount donated to Jan Kalyan 11, but from 11 I think 5 has to be reduced because it will not be considered as an eligible application because it is a corpus donation. Repayment of loan was considered as a eligible application. Amount set apart also would be considered as an eligible application, and thereafter in this case. Now students, one thing, when you talk about cash system of accounting, I must tell to all of you one thing. See, cash system of accounting is only for determining the income, not for the application purpose. Application, whether or not it will be considered as the application or not, that will be considered as per the law. So if the law allows you to do the accumulation and on that basis you are getting the deduction, so the actual payment may not be required. Actual payment may not be required for the purpose of getting the exemption. So therefore, please understand one thing, the cash system of accounting will influence the process of determining the income, not the process of determining the quantum of exemption. The quantum of exemption will be based upon the options which the SSE has under section 11 and not as to what is the method of accounting. Method of accounting only for generation of income. As far as the quantum of exemption is concerned, that will be based on what students? Based on the based on the what section 11 has to say on that. Students, thereafter the tax. Okay, by the way, after that the tax liability calculation. So total income, students, other than anonymous donation. Now after this application, whatever is the balance is the total income, and from this total income, students, herein this particular part 6.6, this total income 15.015, then the anonymous donation under 115 BBC is 6.6. So therefore now the total income of the trust is this much, on which apply 30% on 6.6, and then balance you will apply the slab rate. I think all of you are aware of this. Let's try to take it forward. Question number 1, students, was based on 194N amendment. The total withdrawals from the bank was how much? More than rupees 1 crore. Then the bank would come under the obligation to deduct the TDS under section 194N at the rate of 2%. So students, that is one thing that I have analyzed, and I think every one of you would have got the same solution. Question number 2, this is what I was talking about it, students. Eli Lilly. Let's read this question. Mrs. TQ Inc. a foreign company seconded some employees to its collaborator Mrs. Techwell Limited, an Indian company, for working on a turnkey project for setting up a pharma factory. These employees worked with Mrs. Techwell Limited throughout the previous year 18-19. The employees were in receipt of salary from Mrs. Techwell Limited. They were also in receipt of special allowance directly from Mrs. TQ Inc. in foreign currency outside India. Mrs. Techwell Limited deducted the TDS under 192 on the component of salary paid by it without taking into account the special allowance paid abroad by Mrs. TQ Inc. in the foreign currency to these employees. For this reason, the Revenue Authority treated Mrs. Techwell Limited as an assessee in default under section 201 for non-deduction of tax at source on the special allowance component of the salary. Students, the obligation that you will have would be, once you have to deduct TDS under 192, you have to take into account all that income that would be chargeable in the hands of that particular person on whom the TDS would be deducted under 192. So one thing is there, students, it is not then restricted only in your salary income. Then whatever is the income which is deemed to have accrued to that particular person, you will have to deduct the entire TDS on that amount. So definitely this particular special allowances also would be something that would be deemed to have accrued in India, and on that basis, students, this particular point will be taxable in this regard. So provision, students, first of all, section 9, salary income, if it is earned in India, I've given that first the same presentation. If you remember, this is the way we have also discussed it. Section 9. First, when the income is deemed to accrue rise in India, that is the point number 1. Then section 192, that is what we have to look into it. Then it is forming an integrated code along with the charging computation. In fact, this was also there in your final module, Eli Lilly's case law. The same case law, students, is also there in your module. So let's see here in the conclusion. Since in the given case no return of income was been filed, recipient employee have been given, hence by applying the aforesaid court ruling, who is liable to deduct tax on the special allowance component, so has not deducted, so he will be an assessee in default. Technically speaking, students, what would have happened is that if I would have paid my return, remember that if I would have filed my return, I would have captured that particular income in my ROI, then I may not have been considered as an assessee in default. And the certificate by the chartered accountant would have to be furnished. Then I would not, as a payer who has not deducted the TDS on that particular portion of the amount, I would not have been considered as what? As an assessee in default. But that information is also not available. So we make an assumption that the assessee has not filed the return of income. And finally, as I have told you, that once you are liable to deduct the TDS under 192, it is not only on that income but on all the income which is chargeable under the Act. You have to compute the total income and thereafter calculate the average rate of tax, and on that average rate of tax, on the basis of that average rate of tax, whatever the salary that you are paying, you will have to deduct the TDS under section 192. So that is what it is, and accordingly non-deduction of or non-consideration of the special allowance which the employee have received from its foreign employer will make the payer in India, that is the Techwell Limited, as an assessee in default. Now come question number 3, students, over here. Question number 3 over here, students. This question is on 44C. Here, students, somehow or the other, I feel that students may have done a silly mistake. Now, silly mistakes cannot be ruled out. See what kind of blunder that you would have done. Let me in fact show to you. The net profit, the net result of the business carried on by a branch of a foreign company in India for the financial year ended 31st March 2020 was a profit of rupees 20 lakhs after the charge of the following expenses. After the charge of what? Of the following expenses. So already, students, these debits has been done. Already this debits has been done. Okay, so just be very careful on that. What are the debits? Depreciation for the current financial year 15 lakhs. Unabsorbed depreciation for the previous financial year 17 lakhs. Capex incurred for promoting family planning among state employees is how much? 7 lakhs. 7 lakhs is 1/5 of the total expenditure incurred on promoting the family planning. Thereafter, expenditure incurred for scientific research 11 lakhs. Business loss brought forward for AY 1920 of rupees 25 lakhs. Deduction under Chapter 6A of rupees 20 lakhs. HO expenses of rupees 125 lakhs allocated to the branch. Allocated, students, to the branch. Compute the income to be declared by the branch in its ROI for AY 2020-21. So students, here we all know 5%. So what will happen is that whatever is the HO expenditure which is apportioned will be compared with the 5% of the adjusted total income. Now 5% of adjusted total income, if you know, students, it will be after, or it will be before what? Before all these items. All these items, students, can you see this? Unabsorbed depreciation, capex on the family planning, herein, thereafter the business brought forward losses and all, isn't it? So adjusted total income will be, and this chapter 6A and all those stuff, and obviously HO expenditure also needs to be added back. So if you see over here in the working note, to calculate the adjusted total income, so here primary net profit unabsorbed depreciation 17, 1/5 of the capital expenditure on, even this would be added back. Current year scientific research expenditure or current year depreciation, this is not to be reduced. The current year depreciation, so that is point number 1. This and this will not be reduced in the adjusted total income. This and this. will not be reduced in the adjusted total income. So in that context, students, amount of the brought forward loss 25, deduction to chapter 6A, again added back, and obviously whatever you have debited as the HO expenditure, even that will be required to be added back. Therefore you will be getting what? The adjusted total income, which is 214. This is your, students, the adjusted total income, which is 214. Fine. And with that particular 214, students, over here you will find what in this context? The 5% of this, how much is that? 5% of 214? 5% of 214 is 10.7. 10.7 will be compared with the actual amount which is debited. How much is the actual amount? 125. So what is going to be finally be reduced is 10.7. So see how the total income has to be made. Total income, how do you make the total income? See for yourself. Net profit is 20. Add to that whatever is as per the books and less whatever is required to be deducted from 44C, that is 10.7. And that is what is going to give you the income, which is the taxable income. Do you know, students, what people would have done? Students would have, from adjusted total income of 214, they would have reduced. Many students would have done this silly mistake. Would have reduced what? Would have reduced 10.7. Would have reduced 10.7. If you would have done this, it's an incorrect solution. Because, boss, you need to, this is 20 is what? 20 is the, in fact 20 is what finally? Is the correct profit. But this HO expenditure, we are not adjusting it whether 125 fully should be reduced or we should reduce as per what is going to be arrived in 44C. So that is the reason why from this 20 all the debits are fine, but this debit is what we have to check, and according to the 7th point we add it first and then what we reduce is what is allowed in 44C, and finally we'll get the income. This is what will be the final income. And you can just imagine the silly mistake that many students would have done in the process. So this is what, students, it will boil down to at the end of the day. So be very careful about the approach in which the solution needs to be arrived. Point number B, I think here no students would have gone wrong. Easy question of 915. Every student would have got it right, maximum. Explain in brief whether the transaction of interest of rupees 5 lakhs paid on money borrowed by Mr. Smith, a non-resident, for the purpose of doing business of garments at Mumbai, business of garment students at Mumbai, to Mr. John, who is also non-resident. So NR to NR students. You remember, if NR is the payer of the amount of NR is a payer of the interest and the loan has been obtained from another NR, then for the recipient NR who is receiving the interest income will be deemed to accrue rise in India if the payer, students, if the payer of that interest amount has obtained the loan for the purpose of the business or a profession which is situated in India. So is it for the purpose of a business or a profession which is situated in India for which the payer of the interest has taken the loan for? And the answer is yes. And hence it is deemed to accrue as in India. This is how you need to write the answer. This is what I was talking about, students. Point number C. Can you see that? Point number C. And that is about what? The two comparables. Students, the two comparables. On that two comparables, you will do the comparable adjustment and determine the two ALPs. And once you have got more than one ALP, not going beyond 6. If it is 2 ALP, do the arithmetic mean. After arithmetic mean, 3% is the tolerable band, the safe harbor, and thereafter you will finally do or check the we will finally do the transfer pricing adjustment subject to section 92.3. What is this 92.3? There should not be any downward adjustment. So all that needs to be looked upon. Further, students, they have also targeted this NJA. NJA, they have done it in a very limited sense. I have told you that NJA per se has got no relevance because the Cyprus as a country has been denotified. So, but still, they have the habit of mentioning that that particular party is located in NJA. At least we have seen that if some entity is located in NJA with whom you have done the international transaction, then with whom you have done the transaction, then it will be deemed to be an international transaction. And if it is deemed to be an international transaction, the provision of Chapter 10 automatically will apply. The provision of Chapter 10, that is the transfer pricing provision, will be applied, and the income, expenditure, loss arising in such transaction, and the income, expenditure and loss arising in such transaction will be determined having regard to the arm's length price. Having regard to the arm's length price. On that note, students, on that backdrop, let's have a look to this particular case study. KVS Limited, the SSE has sold goods on 12th of Jan 2020 to L Limited, located in NJA, for rupees 10.5 crores. During the current financial year, KVS Limited charged rupees 11.5 crores from AJ of New York and rupees 12 crores from KP of London for sale of identical goods, and both of which are neither associated enterprise of KVS Limited nor they are situated in any NJA. So neither associated enterprise, students, nor they are situated in any NJA. So students, the comparables have been given to you. Okay, so AJ of New York and KP of London, to whom the sale of identical goods have been done, and they are neither the A nor they are located in NJA. So these are the two comparables. Okay, so the comparable sales of 12 crores and 11.5 crores has been given to you. Let's see further. While sales to AJ, that is of New York, and KP were on CIF basis, the sales to L Limited were on FOB basis. So you have to make it on the CIF sales, you need to now make it on FOB, which paid ocean freight and insurance amounting to rupees 20 lakhs on purchase from KVS Limited. India has a double taxation avoidance agreement with USA and UK. Fine. So in that context, students, what will be the case? You will now to be reducing what? Reducing this particular ocean freight and the insurance of rupees 20 lakhs. The SSE has a policy of providing after sales support service to the tune of how much? 14 lakhs to all the customers except L Limited. So that is after sales support service to the tune of 14 lakhs to all the customers except L Limited, which procured the same locally at the cost of 18 lakhs. So obviously with this deemed international transaction, there is no after sale support. Whereas what? Whereas in the context of all the for AJ and for KP, there would be an after sale support. And what is the price? It is 14 lakhs. 14 lakhs. So that is what needs to be removed. Okay, so compute the ALP for the sales made to L Limited and the amount of consequent increase, if any, from the profit. So by the way, whether the profit they have not given, but we can just compare with this one. So directly shown initial theory, we'll skip it. The same thing, NJA. So therefore it is deemed to be an international transaction. And accordingly here, the cup method, the MA most appropriate method is the cup method, which is to be applied to determine the ALP. So two ALP, students, will be determined in the process. So sale price 11.5 and 12. Now this is a CIF price, you need to arrive at the FOB. So remove that respective insurance and freight, and now you get the FOB. Now the cost 14 is what I have told you, that has to be reduced because this is what has been charged. What has been charged is what needs to be removed. So you will remove 14 and find this is a very simple adjustment actually. 14 to be removed, and accordingly the arm's length price on the individual pricing 11.66 and 11.66 respectively. So now with that, arithmetical mean is what you are going to take. So this arithmetical mean will fetch you 11.41 divided by 2. Now actual is how much? 10.5. Now if you see the difference, students, is how much? The difference between the two is 0.91. Now if you see 3%, if I just say 3% of this, students, 3% of this is 0.3. Approximately 3.3 something. My question to all of you is that whether the actual difference is it greater than 3%? Whether the actual difference is it greater than 3% of the tolerable band? And the answer is yes. So if it is greater than 3% of the tolerable band, therefore what we will say is that we will then accordingly will do the transfer pricing adjustment. So the transfer pricing adjustment of 0.91 needs to be added from the existing profit. But if supposingly students, if just I have this thing, students, if this would have been say 0.2, if the difference between the arithmetic mean and the actual transfer price would have been 0.2 and 3% would have been 0.3, then the difference doesn't exceed the transfer price. The difference doesn't exceed in that regard, isn't it? The difference doesn't exceed 3% of the transfer price. In such particular case, students, in such particular case, what is that we are going to say? We will say that no transfer pricing, no ALP would be adopted, and accordingly no TP adjustment. But here, since the difference, which is 0.91, exceed 3% of transfer price, accordingly we will have to make the TP adjustment. Coming to question number 4, students, this is about the book profit calculation. 115 JB, students, this is a very simple of 115 JB calculation. Please mark all the Jan 21 students and May 21 students. You will do MAT thoroughly of Ind AS adjustment and also of REIT adjustment, RIT. These two you are going to do it very thoroughly. Ind AS and the next one is what? REIT. Do them very carefully and thoroughly. Also in the MAT, you will also do Jan 21 and May 21, the penalty factor. And interplay between the penalty and the MAT. The interplay between the penalty and the MAT is also what you need to do as far as this particular concept is concerned. Finally, students, if you can see over here, primarily, you are done with this. So this you can go through it, students. It's a very simple MAT question. So I'm not going through this particular MAT part. You can just go through it. It's a very simple one. So just get into it. Round trip financing, students, on impermissible avoidance agreement. We have, students, a case study already in our booklet, but they have targeted a theory question. This is the general anti-avoidance rule, the GAR provision. Okay, so how a round tripping financing, just like a Hawala transaction, how it would be considered as an impermissible avoidance agreement. So you need to actually explain what you mean by the term round tripping financing. The best way, students, I should tell you one thing. Again, I'm repeating to all the Jan and May 21 students. Sometimes these kind of a theory question poses a challenge to the students that they are not in a position to articulate themselves very properly. Again, I'm repeating and I'm requesting. I've been telling this particular point again and again to all the students that whenever you come across, you know the concept, but you're not in a position to articulate or express it well. What did I told you? Make the diagram and make the case studies. It is already there in your modules, which I have given it to you in our capsule book, regular book, whichever thing is there. So you will find it, those particular booklets, the case study, make the case study, and through the case study explain this round trip financing. Because if you start writing the sentence which you are not in a position to frame it very well, the meaning will change and it will go haywire completely. So please try to avoid as much as possible a formation of a wrong sentence. And that is my humble submission to all of you. So just keep that in mind, students, and that is what is one of the observations which I have wanted to tell you. Students, the same question we had in prosecution. In fact, I have given the same presentation, which is a solution, which same case study. There is this case study and there is this solution. Can you see that? So this is precisely how we have done. This is based on the amendment actually of FA 19 on which they have targeted this part. We have done this in class. That is the beauty of this. I have made a specific reference on the prosecution part. In fact, I do still remember when I was like initially in the initial lecture of 139.1 of ROI in the notebook and in your module, you will see at that time only all the May 20, November 20 students, you will find I have made a cross referencing of this particular section. And we have done also this case study at that time. So it was redemption at the end of the day, that we have done it at appropriate point of time and it came. So let me then we can just quickly run through this and finish it off. Messrs. Manish and Company, a proprietary concern of Mr. Manish, failed to furnish its ROI for AY 1819 within the due date on under 139(1). The AO in turn lodged a complaint against the proprietor, which is under section 276(c). The tax payable on assessed income as reduced by the tax deducted at source and advance tax paid was the 1,65,000. Manish filed an appeal before the CIT appeals against the order of the assessment and got the part relief. Accordingly, AO passed an order giving the effect to the order of the CIT appeals. The tax payable as per the said order. Now, students, how much is the tax payable now? Only 8,500. The AO accepted the order of the CIT appeals and did not prefer the appeal against it to the ITAT. Messrs. Manish and Company seeks your advice on the maintainability of the prosecution. Students, what was that amendment? Amendment was this, that earlier, prior to that, this was 3,000. Now, after the amendment, it has been increased to 10,000. You will say, sir, what exactly it is? Let's read the solution then. 276(c) of the Income Tax Act, which deals with the prosecution for failure to furnish the return of income, provides as under. Failure to file the ROI within the time allowed in a notice under section 142(1), 148, 153A. Will there be a prosecution? And the answer is yes. So, in response to the notice, when I am asking from you the ROI and there is a failure on your part to furnish the ROI, prosecution is inevitable. Failure to file the ROI within the time allowed under section 139(1). Will the prosecution be there? See the exceptions now. Exception, students: if the ROI is filed before the expiry of the relevant AY, no prosecution. Meaning thereby, even though it's a belated return, in that case, no prosecution. But if no ROI is filed under 139(1), which was the case over here, then see the scenario. Company cannot escape the prosecution. Prosecution will always be there for the company. Other than a company, students, as I told you, the tax payable less what? The TDS, advance tax, SA tax, after reducing them, if the balance which is payable, it is going beyond 10,000. If it is going beyond 10,000, only then there would be a prosecution. Meaning thereby, if the balance payable is only up to 10,000, then no prosecution would be there on such person. And that exactly what this answer is all about. Did you all got this one, students? Now, students, this part is where students would have been a bit uncomfortable. Obviously, for they have asked private trust students. Now, private trust question, students, once in like a decade they ask this question. We have the coverage, the theoretical coverage in our booklet and all, but just imagine how much to do. This they are asking 164 provision. So it is really very taxing on the students on this particular category. But still, let us get a learning opportunity from this particular question. Let's see what would be the solution. So it's a private discretionary trust. By the way, I should tell you that many of such private discretionary trusts we get it in Ahmedabad. This concept of private discretionary trust is coming from Ahmedabad. Students, it is very popular saying that the law is made in Delhi, it is interpreted in Mumbai, and it is broken in Ahmedabad. So that is what it is. So this concept of private discretionary trust actually emerged from Ahmedabad. Let's see. Mr. Lal Singh created Lal Singh Welfare Trust in June 2019 by duly executing and writing a trust deed. He appointed Mrs. Vinita as the trustee. The trust was created to take care of his old parents. So it's not a public trust, it is a private trust. So his old parents and his two uncles, both being older brothers of his father, where all are dependent on Mr. Lal Singh. The income arising out of the assets of the trust is to be allocated among the beneficiary each year as per the sole discretion of Mrs. Vinita. That's the reason why it becomes a discretionary trust. That's the reason why it becomes a discretionary trust. Private discretionary trust. The beneficiary to the trust have no other source of income. Now this changes the answer. Okay. Now first of all, here you have to see whether there is a business income of the trust. They are not mentioning. They are only saying that the income of the trust is only rupees 10 lakhs. So they are not mentioning that there is a business income. What they are only mentioning is that there is an income of the trust. That is all that they are mentioning. In such particular case, students, you are supposed to calculate the tax liability of the trust for AY 2020-21. Would your answer differ if father of Mr. Lal Singh was receiving a monthly pension of rupees 25,000 apart from the trust? So students, now the provision, if you see, if it is a private discretionary trust and the trust does not have a business income, the trust does not have a business income, then as per the general provision, it is taxed at the MMR. It is taxed at the MMR. Okay, MMR means the maximum marginal rate. However, students, here, however, what they say, in case where one of the exception, there are multiple exceptions, but one of them, what is relevant to this question only, I have written over here. In case where none of the beneficiary has any other income chargeable under this act exceeding the maximum amount not chargeable to tax, the tax shall be charged on such income as if it were the total income of the association of person, that is at slab rate. As if what, students? As if it were the total income of the AOP. So therefore it would be charged at slab rate. So in this case, they don't have the beneficiary don't have any other income which is exceeding the basic exemption limit, and therefore the AOP would be taxed. This private discretionary trust will be taxed at what rate, students? At the rate of the slab rate. Now students, I should tell you, some students who would have exercised their wisdom, they should have known that in AOP also such linking is there. Although that is about not the discretionary trust, it is about the determinate trust in AOP. And what there was there, that okay, if they have got their other income not exceeding the basic exemption limit, the other income of the members, then the AOP is taxed at the slab rate. If that logic also somebody would have applied, they would have got their answers. So these kind of questions, those who would not have revised it properly, at least they would have applied their bit of wisdom. Or in the Hindi we say tukka, isn't it? So therefore, if you would have applied it, then maybe you would have got it right. Students, let's see. In the given case, Lal Singh Welfare Trust is a private trust. Okay, so slab rate, so accordingly this is there. Now see the game in this question, which I have noted in this regard. Please have a look. Calculate a tax liability. Now see here. Would your answer differ if father of Mr. Lal Singh was receiving a monthly pension of 25,000 apart from the trust? So 25,000 pension into 12, 3 lakhs. So somebody now will say that 3 lakhs is there. So what is to get the benefit of the exception? All the beneficiary. So none of the beneficiaries' income should exceed the basic exemption limit. Only then the benefit of exception is applicable. But here what is happening, students? Here what is happening? The father of Mr. Lal, he is having the pension of 3 lakhs. And thereby, the benefit of exception may not be available. And therefore, MMR would be the rate. Students, MMR, not that 34.94. MMR here, the 34.94 is only for exit tax, not for these kind of MMR, for AOP or the private trust and all. So 44.744. So this is the amount on which the point has to be considered. Now then, but just be very careful. Here also there is a challenge. On 3 lakhs, you can also make an assumption that, what assumption? See here, the note which I have given it over here. See how this kind of a question can be twisted in your answer. If those who have known this provision, see the note very carefully. two alternative position can be taken based on the information in the question, in which case the benefit of exception can be taken and the private trust would be subject to tax based on the slab rate. And what is that? Point number one, it is assumed that it is uncommuted portion of pension. So the pension that he is receiving is the uncommuted portion of the pension, and because it is uncommuted, it is fully taxable. Under which head? Salary. But if it is taxable under the salary, which will make it as 50,000 into 12, 3 lakhs, but still there is a standard deduction, friends. Still there is a standard deduction of 50,000. And on that standard deduction of 50,000, 2.5 lakhs, again then your income will be up to 2.5 lakhs. 3 lakhs minus 2.5, 50,000, 2.5 lakhs. So it is not exceeding the basic income limit. And if it is not exceeding the basic income limit, then the trust will be charged at the slab rate. That is one. Or let's see the second one. Second assumption which we can make. The fact that he is getting a pension, he can be assumed that, or not he, it can be assumed that he is a senior citizen, in which case the basic exemption limit would be 3 lakhs. We can assume that because he is getting a pension, he is a senior citizen. And therefore, in that situation, the basic exemption limit, students, would be 3 lakhs. And now his total income is also 3 lakhs. 50,000 into 12. So again, it is not crossing the basic income limit. And hence what? And hence what will happen? The trust, the private discretionary trust will have the slab rate as their tax rate. So these are the things that you can write, or you could write in your answer, students. You could write in your answer, and that exactly how you can take it forward. Now see one more question. I have solved, students, here in an alternate basis, because ICI, I think that attempt was, if I'm not mistaken, it was a November 16 attempt. November 16 attempt, student. November 16 attempt. Question. Let's see. November 16 attempt, obviously the old course only. During the previous year, 1920, Mrs. Sujata, citizen of India. Now, even in our book, we have got Arif question. If you remember, in our booklet, this is Arif question. Now, students, I have given one approach, because in the booklet already we have got the other approach. Again, there can be two solutions. IC has shown both the solution. IC has shown both the solution in November 16 attempt. One solution, it is already there in our booklet, which I will explain also to many students who may not be aware of it. I will tell you what is that, which is there in our booklet, plus the other solution. I am giving the two solution, both the solution. See over here very carefully. During the previous year, 1920, Mrs. Sujata, a citizen of India, a resident of both India and foreign country, with which India has a DTAA, which provides that, what it provides, be very careful, that the income would be taxable in country where it is earned and not in the other country. Now, students, such restriction made on the country of resident is very few DTAA which creates such sort of a restriction in the DTAA, that wherever it is earned, only that country will be having the exclusive right to tax that income, whereas the source, the home country, which is the country of resident, will not have any right whatsoever to tax this particular income. Such sort of reservation or qualification is rarely found in the treaties. But yes, there are such reservations, but they are very rarely found in the treaties. Now, next paragraph. No, sorry, the last line. But would be included for computation of tax rate in such other country. Meaning thereby, in the country of resident, although you cannot take this income as a part of your total income, okay, because as per the treaty which you have to apply, because it is whatever is more beneficial to the SSC is what needs to be applied finally. So if you apply the treaty, students, then in that particular case, what happens? Application of treaty, you will always find what, students? That it is more beneficial, and if it is more beneficial, the SSC will say that I will not make this as a part of my total income. But you will still have to make this as a part of your income only for limited purpose. And what is that limited purpose? The rate purpose. It is just like, students, the agricultural income, which is also not going to be formed as a part of the total income. But in the case of an individual and the HUF, agricultural income is to be included for rate purpose. Same logic applies over here also. Let's have a look next paragraph. Her income is rupees 5,75,000 from the business in India and 14 lakhs from business in foreign country. In foreign country, the rate of tax is 20%. During the year, she paid a premium of rupees 35,000 to ensure the health of her mother. Also a non-resident aged how much? 83 years. So students, how much deduction? 80D, 25,000. Perfect. You are required to compute the tax payable by Mrs. Sujata in India for AY 2021. Also show the tax payable by Mrs. Sujata in India had there been no DTAA with such foreign country. Please have a look. Income from business in India 5,75,000. Deduction to chapter 6 say 25,000 will be reduced. Total income is 5,50,000. Income from business in the foreign country is 14 lakhs. Income from business in the foreign country is how much? 14 lakhs. So that is one particular point. Now this total income, you add this 14 lakhs. This addition is only to finally get the rate. Now 19,50,000 is your total income for rate purpose. Now you calculate a tax, full tax, and that is primarily 397. Now see, this is one approach, 397. This is the way agricultural income also we have done it. In our book we have got another way solution which ICAI has taken in November 16. November 16 they have given both the solution. So I am giving the alternate solution over here, and in the book also I have given in our one more solution. So let me first discuss with you this one. This is the agricultural income approach. So 3,97,500, and thereafter less the tax on the basic exemption limit plus the foreign income. The way we all do it. So 2,50,000 plus 14 lakhs. So that on 16,50,000 you will calculate a tax which is 3,07,500. Take the net amount, and on the net amount finally you will add what? Education cess of 4%, and that is how you will get it. Now what is the alternate approach? Students, alternate approach is what you can do. You can calculate you have on 19,50,000. On 19,50,000 you can calculate full tax. When I say full tax means 3,97,500 plus 4% HEC. Whatever be the case, get the average rate. Now say for example the average rate is, I'm just speculating here, average rate is say 1/5. 1/5 is the rate. Okay, 20%. This is the rate which is coming. Okay, I'm just giving you this particular part. So if this, now you'll say, sir, how do you got this 20%? This 20% is whatever is the tax liability. Students, whatever is the tax liability, finally that you have got it, divide by the tax liability, this total income. Whatever is the tax liability, till cess, get the divided by the on tax liability divided by the total income, take the percentage. Now that percentage is the effective tax rate, and on that effective tax rate you will apply on what? That effective tax rate, students, you will apply on the total income of 5,50,000, which is a chargeable part. So you actually calculate the tax liability on 19,50,000 till cess, take the average rate, and then once you get the average rate, apply the average rate on the Indian income which is tax, which is 5,50,000. This would be your final tax to be paid. This is also one of the alternate solution which we have adopted in our booklet. Plus this is also one of the solution which is also what ICAI has prescribed. So ICAI number 16 solution, they have given both the answer, this as well as the other one. It is number 16. Yes, I think yes, number 16 only. Number 16. Number 16, May 17. One of the two attempts. May 16, November 16, May 17. These are, I think it is number 16, but May 16, November 16 and May 17. One of the two. One of the three. If there is no DTAA, this is a simple one. This is the simplest of the thing. Now 148. At the end of it, it came. At the end of it, students, it came. And I have told to many of my students, and many students in fact reported to me that the way you have discussed this particular part is what we have told. I told you to make the chart, to make all these things, because it becomes very, like, writing sentence becomes also very lengthy answer. So in the case of the case laws, which actually can get very lengthy, making the chart the way I have told you earlier also in the class will definitely help to squeeze the length and make it relevant as possible to the relevant question itself. So it was based on whether on 147 order, at the time of passing of the 147 order, whether the AO can assess only on the basis of the new ground that he has found during the course of the proceedings of section 147. This is the issue under consideration. So for which we know there is a controversy, two point of view exist, and accordingly we will have to take both the point of view into account. Better to make the chart if the case law length is going beyond the kind of the marks which is allocated, and that exactly what it would be. Next, students, is the poem test. It is actually a simple one. This particular question, students, is a pretty simple one in the entire scheme of the things. Pretty much a simple particular thing. So here, students, in the context of the poem part, this active business outside India test has to be applied. Now, this was a straight question. There is not much of the thrills and the frills as far as this point is concerned. So, this time I feel that as far the new course students is concerned, the level, I'm not aware of the MCQ part, but at least on the descriptive part, the level of the question was on a bit of easier side. Length may be a challenge for the students about the fact that they have struggled to complete the paper. That is true. But the kind of the questions as compared to what otherwise we have witnessed in the recent past, this kind of the question is a breather, is not that difficult. And that is an eye-opener for the Jan 21, May 21 students. Please students, a request to all of you, just do my MTPs very carefully. Number one. Secondly, all the Jan 21 students, this particular batch which I have already launched, you can take it in the offline mode. The capsule batch, 75 hours revision timetable is also there. Please take the benefit of it. You will definitely feel very good about this one. I'm telling you, it's not in the air that we have done it. I've done lot of research and all these paper hair splitting. I have done it, and then on that basis this customized batch has been made. Last but not the least, students, again I'm repeating, those who are May 21, November 21 students and were looking for my batch, now I am in the platform of the Unacademy. Unacademy is the platform where my lectures gets streamed. Now live batch is there, students. Really very good. I have, like, if you would have seen some of my live lectures, it has been an eclectic performance. I am doing, students, the live lecture both in Hindi as well as in English. 100% Hindi and 100% English. So you will find it here. One morning batch 9:15 to 11:15 is 100% Hindi, and the evening batch, students, is an English batch, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Again for May 21, November 21 students. So all the students who are there having their attempt due on May 21 and November 21, do take the benefit of this particular live batch. And as I told you, if not live, you can also view the lecture in an offline mode as well. It's up to you how you want to take it forward. But as I've told you, do take the benefit of the same. Now I'll see you students in the next particular session. Same way, I'll just come across and I will have a discussion with all of you, which would be immensely be very well helpful. By the way, this particular questions are simple question. After that, one TRO theory question was there, 222, whether the transfer to the spouse and all, so that will bounce back. And thin capitalization, again a very simple question. In fact, this was based on one question, this thin capitalization, students, simple question. Again it was which attempt? May 18 attempt, if I'm not mistaken. So this was it. So on that basis, this particular question was being raised. So that is it. Paper analysis, students, of the new course. Old course paper is already analyzed, which is there in the Unacademy learning app. Special class is there, which you can view it. It's free class. View that lecture, and if there is any issue of unlocking that video, use the code CADS. And also in all the subscription, use this code CADS for getting the subscription at a discounted rate. Fine, students, do take care of yourself and just have faith. Don't lose hope, because these are the tough times. that everyone just needs to survive that particular moment. God bless to all of you students. Thank you very much.